Hello, this is Xbox Ahoy, and this is the bonus footage from my time with the LSAT. There's also a few FMJ clips on the end as well, from a variety of other weapons. The emblem this week was from Subversive Service Napster, kind of the pirate's choice for music piracy back in the late 90s. The sort of the cat logo types, I thought it was a pretty distinctive one and relatively easy to put together. I thought it would work quite well as an emblem. Also of note this week was a bit of a rebrand. Mr. Greasy Bacon says, why did you change the channel logo? Well, prior to this weekend I was using the standard black and orange logo, which is basically just the Black Ops 2 logo, but instead of saying Black Ops 2, it said Xbox Ahoy. So, I mean, pretty obviously at some point I was going to move away from Black Ops 2 and switch to a different branding. What actually prompted this change was switch over to the new YouTube layout. Now, it's optional at the minute, but it is kind of ramping up to be the standard for, a YouTube channel. So I thought I'd stay ahead of the curve and actually update my channel look. And to tell you the truth, I think it was time to sort of switch away from the Black Ops 2 stuff. I think I've established that my channel is doing Black Ops 2 now. Back in autumn last year, I was looking to sort of re-establish my relevance and saying, look, I'm doing Black Ops 2. You can tell just by my logo. But I think I'm far enough along now in the Black Ops 2 season that people have realised that I'm doing Black Ops 2. So really what I was doing was maybe going for something that was a bit more distinctive, something that wasn't like all the other channels with black and orange logos. I also wanted something that would work fairly well at a small size, and the words Xbox Ahoy, although that's only 8 characters, at the sizes that most avatars are at, actually pretty difficult to read. So instead I went for an X and an A monogram. Of course, this is Ahoy Xbox, which is a different channel, but the branding is very similar. I've just turned the avatar 180 degrees. So instead of saying XA, it now says AX. There's also a new palette of 3 colours. You've got the teal on the main channel, you've got the sort of scarlet pink on this channel, and there is also a blue colour as well, which I'm currently using on the Retro Ahoy channel. These 3 hues, they're kind of complementary, they work well and look nice together. And they're also loose interpretations of RGB, which are the 3 sort of complementary colours for digital colour mixing. So yes, there is a new brand, but it's not that important. I just wanted something that was detached from a single game, because I'm thinking that over the next 18 months, I'm going to move away from doing one game for an entire year, and instead focus on doing shorter series. I mean, if you embark on a, like a 50-plus episode series, you're going to feel a little bit bogged down. So I'm thinking maybe I'm going to cap out series to maybe 12 episodes tops. What this means for Weapon Guides and Modern Warfare 4, or whatever it's called, I don't know. That's yet to be decided, but I wanted a brand that would work with whatever I choose to cover. Another thing I wanted to do is I wanted to lessen the presence of the word Xbox in my own branding. 2 principal reasons. One is to give me a bit more flexibility with the sort of stuff that I can cover. Like if I want to do PC games, then... I mean, if I was on an explicitly Xbox-branded channel, then, yeah, people will be like, oh, he's doing PC games and this is called Xbox Ahoy. So, yeah, the sort of the diminution of the dirty word that is Xbox is to sort of try and steer clear of, platform arguments, especially given that we're entering into a new era of fanboyism with the next generation. And second of all, I wanted to sort of, from a legal perspective, I wanted to sort of make myself distinct from anything to do with Microsoft. I mean, I think as long as I'm sort of operating within the sphere of Xbox games, I'll be fine from a legal perspective. I mean, I'm just like an unofficial Xbox video game guide channel, which is, I think I should be fine. But yeah, at least putting some distance between myself and the Xbox branding gives me a little bit of legal insulation. Anyway, that's the rationale. Doesn't matter if you don't like it. You might grow to like it. And even if you don't, what does it matter? It's just an avatar, really. Anyway, moving on to the rest of the LSAT questions. It was a bit of an unusual build. 2K Kim says, a stealth build with an LMG. Oh, the irony. It is quite an unusual one, but then the suppressor on the LMGs in Black Ops 2 is surprisingly effective. I mean, it barely affects the Mark 48 at all. In fact, I think pretty much all of the LMGs are good with the suppressor attached. And that's definitely some distance from the era of Modern Warfare 2, where you'd basically, you'd need an extra bullet at all ranges. So it's gone from a pretty bad choice in Modern Warfare 2 to a pretty gosh darn good choice in Black Ops 2. And I kind of wanted to shoehorn in the smoke and thermal combo again. I did it with the SVU, and it works pretty well there on a sniper, but it also works really well with the LMGs. And so, I mean, like I said, the LSAT is a very versatile weapon. It does support a large variety of different playstyles. You could even put lightweight on, quick draw, and maybe the stock even, and you could play a little bit more aggressively with it, almost. As I mentioned in the guide itself, you could just put FMJ and the target finder, and you've got a perfectly fine LMG build with the, it works just as well as the Mark 48 does with that combo. But anyway, the best thing about versatile weapons is that it does give you a bit of an opportunity to experiment and have funkier loadouts going on. And I've got to say, I actually quite like the dual band scope. It's pretty nice in this game. The Bulb says, Stu, what's your opinion on the SimCity series? Have you played any of them? I think I've played most of them. I don't think I played much of the first one, although I have revisited it since. SimCity 2000 was probably the game that I played first out of the SimCity series. I'm pretty sure I played SimCity 3000 at some point as well, and I definitely played a fair old bit of SimCity 4. Having said that, with the new SimCity, I kind of want to play it, but I've heard so many bad things about it that, I don't know, I'm kind of thinking that I'll give it a few weeks. And then I'm looking at the price of it, it's £44. For a PC game, £44? Not to mention the fact that it's not on Steam, so I don't know, I might play it if I can get it relatively cheap. I would happily pay about 25 quid for it, but 45 quid, that's just asking too much, so I might wait until it goes on sale. Andreas Hirth says, Stu, is there any BGE videos in production? I'd love to see more of that if you'd have time. Also, do you have any experience with Norwegian beer? I've had a few Norwegian beers in my time. Most of them, I think, were from the brewery Nunja. I'm not sure if that's been pronounced right. I'm not 100% on the pronunciation of those crossed O's. They throw me off a little bit. But yeah, Nunja. They do a good beer. I've had a few of those in the local Brewdog bar, and I think I've had a couple of bottles at home as well. As far as the beverage guides are concerned, there is one major video in production, but I'm currently waiting for a bit of hardware. I actually pre-ordered a new camera way back Christmas. It was kind of a Christmas present to myself, but they're on back order. And, well, here we are midway through March and I still haven't taken delivery of it. I was really hoping to sort of film everything on this new camera. For those interested, it's the Blackmagic Cinema camera. It's actually the same manufacturer as the Intensity Pro, which I used to record my Xbox gameplay, but it's a 2.5K digital cinema camera. It takes Canon EF lenses, which is convenient because that's what I use. It records directly onto an SSD, which you kind of plug in like a memory card, and it has fantastic quality. Now, I could just film this video on my 7D, which is, truth be told, that's pretty good. I don't like some of the traits of digital SLRs for video, though. I don't like the aliasing. I don't like the fact that you are kind of limited in terms of recording time. There's some weird EU law that if something's capable of recording for longer than 10 minutes, it's subject to a certain, I think it's like 8% tax on import to the EU on video cameras over digital still cameras. Which is kind of stupid, but it means that, when Canon make their DSLRs, they just make them record for 10 minutes and then stop automatically. So yeah, I'm kind of focusing on the Black Ops 2 stuff for the moment, but I do have a couple of ideas sort of in the works. I've also set up a new channel. Well, I set it up a while ago just to secure the name, but Drinks Ahoy, that's probably going to be the channel that will prove to be the home of my future drink-related content. It's listed in the related channels of Ahoy Xbox, but for the time being there's nothing really on there. But I'll probably get around to it at some point. I've got a couple of ideas. Talking of languid projects, I see a few people asking about Behind the Lines. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about it. But I can pretty much categorically say it's not likely to appear whilst I'm doing these weekly Black Ops 2 videos. I'm also at a bit of a quandary because I'm not sure quite what approach to take with it. Now, you see, the original Behind the Lines video, that was about the FNFAL and its depiction in Call of Duty. But I'm kind of thinking, why limit yourself to Call of Duty? Why don't you do sort of the history of this next gun and its appearance not only in Call of Duty, but also in, well, pretty much all gaming? Why don't we just sort of take a holistic approach instead of just focusing on Call of Duty? And I'm thinking, yeah, that's a great idea, but it's a kind of a different focus. And then I'm thinking, do I focus more on the history of the gun in games, or do I focus more on the actual real-life gun? I haven't quite established the answer to that question yet, but I can tell you now that something like Behind the Lines is probably going to take me a couple of months to put together. There's a whole host of research, of actual filming, script writing. So it is tough to sort of try and find some time to fit that in. I might very well do it after I finish the Black Ops 2 content. I will need to disappear for a little while, but I don't know, maybe I'll do behind the scenes videos and open up the process a little bit on this channel. Again, I promise nothing. I may very well get blindsided once I finish the Black Ops 2 content with something else. Maybe another game will come along and I'll do a couple of guides, and then who knows? Who knows? I'm not going to make any promises for, something which is 20 weeks away. LegoFan56 liked the Napster emblem and wanted to know my stance on piratism, or piracy, as I suppose one might say. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, I've pirated things in my time. I buy a lot of games these days, principally because I can afford them and I have a job of sorts. But back in my earlier days, back in college, back in university, even in the days before the internet, yeah, of course, piracy was rife. It's free games. Who doesn't like free games? Even way back on the ZX Spectrum when games were on cassette tapes, of course people would just copy the tapes and give them to you. With the Commodore Amiga, copy discs were very common. You can go to car boot sales, which is, well, basically it's people selling stuff out of their car boot at a field. For my American friends, that would be a trunk. So yeah, I mean, I kind of grew up in this culture of copying, and it never really went away. It's the same with music as well. I mean, mixtapes and, the early sort of CD burners, it wasn't really like you were breaking the law, it's just sharing music. It's what people did, it's what people have done since you can tape stuff. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a proponent of breaking copyright law. I'm really not. I mean, I'm a content creator. I make a living off my content. But, times change, and I think if your business model can be defeated by a 13-year-old with a computer, then it really wasn't much of a business model at all. I don't know, I think we're seeing the death throes of the long-standing music industry. Don't get me wrong, stealing stuff for free, subverting, the intent, it's wrong. Of course it's wrong. But in many ways, piracy is really just an artifact of an industry that has its priorities in the wrong place. And I suppose Napster is it's a symbol of the crystallization of this realization that the music industry is changing. I'm telling you, when people study the history of digital markets in the future, they'll look at Napster as kind of a critical event. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I support piracy, but I am accepting of piracy. I suppose from my point of view, I don't really have to worry about piracy because, well, I kind of have a monopoly on the release of my own videos, and so it's easier for people to just watch videos on my channel. But there is something which is akin to, well, I don't want to sort of draw a direct parallel, but adblock is kind of a similar factor to piracy as far as my own income is concerned. Now, it's not a direct factor because I go through a network and I have slightly more stable income as a result. But overall, if people choose to not view adverts on my channel, then my channel's earning potential is decreased and, well, it's likely I'll see lower CPMs from my network. So I suppose, if we're looking at my bottom line, my profitability, then for me, adblock is definitely a bad thing. But to a certain extent, you just have to accept that it happens. It's an artifact. So, I mean, would I like it if everybody turned off adblock for my videos? Sure, of course. Of course I would. That would be good. But at the same time, it's not really something you can fight against. It's like if you run a shop or a supermarket, you're always going to have a certain amount of shrinkage, shoplifting. And you can't really fight it, you just have to take steps to minimize it. Anyway, for the record, I do now pay for my music. I have a Spotify subscription, and rest assured, I have bought many, many records in my life as well. The one and only Sherlock says, Stu, do you like the idea of caseless ammunition? I do, it's very futury, and I like that. I mean, assuming you can sort of iron out the thermal issues that the lack of a brass casing actually introduces, then yeah, it's cool. I like it. Daztech4273 says, so now that you've covered both the LSAT and the Mark 48, which now out of the two do you prefer? Well, I've got to say, I do think the Mark 48 is a better LMG. That's to say, it's better at a traditional LMG role. The high damage, the fact that you've got nearly infinite range, the fact that it tears through stuff with FMJ on, makes it a very good weapon. So of the two, I don't know, I'd probably go with the Mark 48. But the LSAT does have versatility in its core. It's a very easy weapon to use, which is nice. James Willis says, while you were in the US, did you try a good old Budweiser? Well, we do have Budweiser here in the UK as well. It is a global brand after all, and I've certainly drank a few of those in my time. But while I was in the USA, I don't think I actually drank that much. I was there to work, unfortunately, but I did have a few sort of drinking lunches. I think for the most part, when presented with typical American beer selection, I went for Blue Moon. It's not spectacular, but it's a little bit more flavourful than your typical American adjunct lager. I did also take some time out to go to a pretty good microbrewery called The Brewery, based in Orange County. That was good. I had a few of their beers. Jesus Lol 2 says, who's that crazy Al guy you play with, and why is he so awesome? How did this get thumbs up? Please, in the future, if you see Alan in the comments, please give him a thumbs down so I don't have to read his questions. Chuck Norris 4242 says, Stu, do you know the game Skullgirls? If so, do you like it or not? I do know Skullgirls, yes. It's a very pretty fighting game. And it seems to be quite a sort of deep and layered fighting game as well. The only thing I don't like about Skullgirls is that I'm terrible at it. I just can't play it. Seriously, I can't even complete it on easy. That game is hard. I haven't even tried playing it competitively online because I know that I would be crushed into a small cube and placed carefully on a shelf as some sort of trophy. Mr. Player 12344 says, doesn't a dual band increase recoil by 10%? Well, you are kind of right, but it's less simple than it first appears, because the dual band also removes the gun model, which means the element of gun kick is completely removed, which leaves only the view kick to contend with. My time to kill video on recoil is a pretty good reference there. So yeah, the handling of the LSAT is slightly different with the dual band, but I still kind of liked it. There may be a slight increase in recoil, but you've already got an increase of recoil with the suppressor, so it's not like we're going for a marksman class here. So yeah, it does increase recoil by 10%, but that's not always necessarily an entirely bad thing. Especially not when you factor in all the other benefits of the attachment. Guns and Blades says, Stu, what is your favourite cheese for eating on its own? Now, I like a creamy, medium-hard cheese, traditional English style. I'm a big fan of a red Leicester, and I think my favourite type of cheese overall probably has to be a double Gloucester. There's also a few lesser-known regional varieties from Lancashire. There's a farm in Bleasdale that used to make particularly nice cheese that I used to be able to get from Preston Market. Griggs47 blah 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 says, Stu, would you ever consider yourself as some sort of celebrity? We live in strange times where the boundaries to fame have been, well, basically removed. I wouldn't say I was exactly a celebrity, but I guess I'm better known than a typical guy on the street, I suppose. Within a certain demographic, that is to say teenage boys, I'm probably relatively famous. But all this attention hasn't really gone to my head. I don't go down my local Tesco saying, do you know who I am? Well, maybe that one time, but that was an anomaly. Ben Atkins Chafer says, Stu, saying flunk out and fail is like saying fail and fail. Yes, I know. The reason I said flunk out and fail is because the cadence was better. It reads more fluently, there's better flow. I know it's a repetition, and in the original script I just said, where other weapons will flunk out, the LSAT will pass the test. But I didn't like sort of ending the first portion of the pun on a riser. Flunk out versus flunk out and fail. I think there's more impact to the latter. Speaking of the pun, it was a reference to the, well, kind of a reference to the North American law school admission test. But it also works in other countries because there are quite a few exams called SATs. So I think most people got it. Some people didn't, but it's kind of the same with every single pun, really, so there you go. Elias Murray says, the new channel page layout is garbage. Please switch back to the original one if you can. I don't know, every time YouTube changes something, people complain. And not just a little bit, they complain a lot. You've got to kind of, you've got to go with what YouTube do, really. It's changing, whether you like it or not, they're rolling this out. You can still watch videos just fine, and hey, you never know, maybe they'll fix all the sub-box issues. Maybe. A man can dream. I'm pretty sure YouTube provides a number of ways to stay up to date, though. I mean, subscriber boxes aside, you've got stuff like email subscriptions, which work pretty well, I understand. You've also got RSS, for those who use an RSS reader or know how to operate that. And if all else fails, you can just check the channel page once in a while. I don't think YouTube's as broken as some people think it is. Robert SN says, this is from the FMJ video incidentally, maybe it's worth mentioning that you cannot use FMJ with the MMS. You're probably right. My scripts for the attachment guide, I think the structure's a little bit off. I need to work on that a little bit. I don't have a section for attachment interactions, for instance, or synergies, that sort of thing. So I think I'm going to change things slightly with the suppressor script. For instance, I will be sure to mention that you can't use long barrel and suppressor together. But, these attachment guides, they're kind of new to me. I've not done them before, really. And I'm only, 6 episodes deep, approaching. Weapon guides, I've done hundreds of weapon guides. They're easy now. Owen Anderson asks, but what if you also have a suppressor? Does the FMJ give you back the damage lost? Short answer, no. They work through completely different channels. FMJ is penetration, and penetration alone. Suppressor, amongst other things, reduces your range. They can work together, which means you'll both be silent and shoot through walls, but your range will still be reduced. There'll be no recovery of range with FMJ. I don't know why, but FMJ always seems to be one of the trickier attachments to sort of understand. I see some people in the comments still swearing blind that FMJ does in fact increase your damage. I mean, it doesn't. It kind of does, but only against score streaks. Anyway, I'm pretty sure most people have it by now. Brandon R85 says, so wait, the effects don't apply to Guardians and Sentries? That's pretty stupid. I believe so. That's what one of my sources says, and I don't have a reason to disbelieve it. I guess they don't have a huge degree of health. I mean, if you have like a Mark 48 with FMJ, or well, even without FMJ, I suppose, you'll down it in relatively few bullets. Of course, if you have Engineer equipped and you spy a turret through a wall, FMJ will help you to deal more damage behind that wall, if that makes sense. But yeah, FMJ or not, just keep on shooting until you see the points. What is up, Mon? Says, hey Stu, I noticed you crossfade clips where it seems that you are entering mortal peril. Do you intentionally fade out before your death, or is it just coincidence? Well, every clip comes to an end somehow. I mean, most of the time it's just because I don't get any more kills. You know, there's a lull in activity, and that's a point when I'll cut. In some cases, you know, sure, I'll die. I try to avoid using clips where I immediately die. I prefer to get, you know, like a clean triple and then a moment of pause just to sort of soak in the feed. But, you know, sometimes you can't be fussy. Like, if you get a quad feed and you immediately die, you know what? Still a quad feed. But yeah, I'm not concealing any sort of hidden kills beyond the bounds of the clip. It's only in very rare circumstances when I'll cut out additional kills from a clip. I like to keep them whole where possible. But sometimes, a super long spree, I might take the meatiest parts and then maybe I'll clip out a couple of the kills just for timing. Anyway, speaking of timing, we have reached the end of the bonus footage, and I've also run out of questions, which is convenient, so I shall cut it here. Thank you very much for watching. Join me on Friday for the Vector Guide, join me on Sunday for the Suppressor Guide, and I don't know when the next Xbox Ahoy Plays video will be. That might be Gears of War Judgment, whenever that comes out, possibly the 22nd of March, probably the day after I'll release the video. So anyway, until then, farewell.